Hey guys, Tucker here. Welcome to our full-length discussion on all things Epp Well Solutions. Today I'm joined with my father, Kevin Epp. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you started the company.
I've done landscape for many, many years, and doing landscape, a lot of the things we're doing is we're putting in sprinklers, and that's a pretty simple thing with city water. But then you add the layer of well water, and that makes a new challenge. And as we found out fairly quickly, that some wells can't run sprinklers; they just don't have that much water. And then taking it to the next level, there's wells out there that don't even produce enough for a household to work with. And I didn't really understand that very well until my in-laws had a well that was only producing 1 quart a minute. Now he worked with automation and controls, so he figured, hey, he could probably make something that would work for them. And so he started that process, had a programmer put together a program, and it kind of worked. It really didn't do a good job. And I just started fiddling with it, helping him out. And we ended up coming up with something that I thought, this could be something that could help a lot more people out. And that's kind of how we stumbled upon this issue and solution that we found.
And when was this?
This was about 2011 when we started doing that, and we became incorporated in 2013.
So back in those days, you were just building them like locally in the area, right?
Yeah, it was all piecemeal. We'd go out and source a tank, and we'd get a booster pump, and we'd get a pressure tank, and we'd just start plumbing it to their specifications and their location, and just totally custom build it for each location. And that was cumbersome and took a lot of time, and it was unique for each location. And we thought, if this is going to be something that we want to sell and move across the country, we need to come up with a much better plan than that.
So then that means that the first system's been out there for quite some time.
Yeah, they've been operating for many, many years, and really changed these people's lives, that they could actually utilize their land the way they wanted to, and felt like their dream wasn't going to be squashed as they bought their property and they got a well and they built their house, and all of a sudden they're like, man, we can't survive on this amount of water.
So tell me about that first well. What was it producing? What were they trying to do?
So at the first well, that was, again, my in-laws' house. So that's my father-in-law and my mother-in-law, and their two adult kids. And then he had his folks on an ADU on the property. So you really have 6 adults, 2 households running on 1 quart a minute. That's a lot. That's a huge ask. Then you have, she has flower gardens. They had some animals. All these things require water. You want to pressure wash the house. You want to do any kind of outdoor project where you need to wash something off. All those things add up. And they also like to entertain, have family over, have church members over for potlucks and different things. And we were constantly running out of water. And then they'd have to tell everybody, hey, don't flush the toilets. Can't wash dishes right now. And these were things that really hampered their lifestyle, what they wanted to be able to do. So that's kind of how it all began. And it was fun to see how that changed just the way they were able to operate. And also just, that gut-wrenching feeling like, hey, we're going to have to sell and go somewhere else because this dream is dying.
So a lot's happened since then, since that first day. Give us a little bit more history. Since then, what happened to Epp Well Solutions?
It's the classic startup where you think, man, this thing's going to just launch, take off. And you think that everybody in your local county is going to need this and want this and come flocking to you. And it was kind of a slow push to get the word out. And then just custom building them. And it was kind of a slow go from the get-go. But anybody that got it was just so amazed with how it worked. And even them telling their friends that it's hard to explain to anybody that doesn't have that need. If you don't have the need, well, you don't need the solution. And trying to explain that to people is really hard because even relatives, we tell them, and then we hear them tell somebody else, and you go, wow, they don't really understand it because most of them are on city water. They don't understand the lack of water and that need. But as we continued, yeah, we changed a lot of what we do because we're now selling them as a complete package, something that we can ship. They just slide in place, hook up some of their plumbing and electrical and plug it in, and it takes off and does its thing. They don't have to set up a pump, set up a pressure tank, set up the controller, wire it together, all of the different sensors and all of that, and custom find a tank that's going to fit through their doorway or fit in that particular spot, and so it's been a fun challenge to simplify, streamline, make it very compact and user friendly, and also something that's going to work for a 1 quart a minute well versus a 5 gallon a minute well. And the hard thing is a low producing well, it differentiates between somebody who needs a lot of gallons per minute versus, not, so a low producing well could be a 5 gallon a minute well for some people that need a lot of demand and flow at one particular point. A 5 gallon a minute well is plenty for most people, but not for everybody. So developing something that would fit those different dynamics was kind of a fun challenge, and we've been adapting as we go along.
Which we'll get to in a little bit. Some of the new exciting changes. So you've been doing this for quite some time. What would you say is your favorite thing, or some of your favorite things about Epp Well Solutions?
Well, I've always been the type that enjoys problem solving. So, as you might imagine, we've ran into a few problems on the way, and just maybe more of a problem of like, this is my unique situation. How could we work with that? Because everybody's got a different setup. Some people have a well that's actually got a decent amount of flow, but it has to go so slow through a lot of filtration or conditioning, water conditioning and stuff. By the time they get it through that, they just don't have the amount of flow they need or the amount of pressure they might need. And so then we're adapting for a different scenario than a low producing well might. Or we have enough for the house, but we also are running sprinklers, or there's all kinds of different aspects. And so how do we meet each one of these different unique setups? And so there's never a day where you're just completely bored, because there's always something new around the corner that's like, hey, how would you fix this particular problem? So I really enjoy that aspect of it.
So what would you say is the overarching goal of our company?
Yeah, I would say the goal of our company is to find a way to help you live the lifestyle that you want to on your property, and manipulating the way you get the water from your well to end up with the ultimate goal of meeting your need, whether that's being out of power and you need emergency water, whether that's I need more volume or pressure of water than my current well is producing, but I have plenty of water. It's just not enough at the end point. Or, yeah, I've got a low producing well. What can I do to get the volume and pressure of water that I need at my peak demand, whether that's morning or evening? And so all of those are different challenges and take different ways of fixing those problems. So we've developed along the way, a different product line, going from hand pumps to very simple booster pump systems with tanks that have either mechanical or way more sophisticated systems that have a lot of feedback and data and cool touch screens and everything, to a low producing well system that can actually monitor your well and give you a lot of data, which is amazing, of how much you've used and flow rates and all this stuff. And that's kind of developed over the time, and we've come up with new ways of doing it, and it's been exciting to meet those challenges. So our flagship product is the well harvester. So when people call, how do you explain to them what is this product and how does that solve their problem?
Yeah, so basically, in super easy terms, it's a smart cistern, smart water collection system, which, you wouldn't know what the heck that means unless you are in the industry or looking for a solution. But basically, it's an all-in-one solution for low production wells. So it's built on our custom engineered 215-gallon tank. And it's got pump controls, sensors, booster pump, everything built in, plug and play, ready to go. And basically it's sipping little bits of water at a time from your well, storing up in the tank as a buffer so that whenever you want to do things like take a shower, wash a car, do laundry, any of those things, you've got that water stored up to do so. And our system takes pump protection and well protection a step further. It's actually what it's patented for. So we've got a patent on our well harvester that basically it's monitoring water level in the well, but it's doing that without sensors down in the well, which is really, really cool. Instead, it utilizes back pressure. So basically you've got your static water level in your well, and as that depletes and gets closer and closer to the pump, it gets harder for the pump. Which actually decreases the back pressure up at the well harvester system, because it's currently being restricted by, essentially a flow restrictor, which does exactly what it's called, restricts the flow, creates that back pressure. And so the well harvester's got a sensor on it that monitors that back pressure. And if it detects it get low, indicating the water level's low, it'll shut it down. So well before, the well runs out of water, so that we keep water down in the well while still harvesting at maximum efficiency. Which keeps the well most healthy. But that's just a great way of protecting the well and the pump without needing sensors down in the well. Super easy to install, fully automatic. So there's a whole lot more to it than that, but that's kind of basically how I'd explain it. Which brings me to a question of mine. How would you explain overpumping?
Yeah, overpumping is any time you're pumping water faster than the well can keep up with. So if you imagine cutting away the earth and looking at the water table in your well, as you pump, that's starting to what they call a cone of depression. It's starting to go down as that water's being sucked out of that. And the faster that you pump that water out, the more that's going to dip down, the further that depression happens, and it's pulling water, trying to get there to fill that void. As that's happening, sediment materials getting forced into those crevices as that water's rushing to try to fill that. That's going to reduce the amount of flow that you can get through those voids in that ground. So it's going to start slowing that down over time. So the goal is to slow your water consumption. So instead of this big depression in the ground as that water's rushing to fill back, we're going to slow that down. So overpumping is anytime you're pumping so fast that creates such a depression and is causing those problems. So we're going to address that by slowing that withdrawal rate.
So the well harvester is very different from traditional methods, I would say, of dealing with low production wells. You've got timer-based systems, pump protection devices, then our well harvester system. Kind of explain the differences between these and what makes the well harvester so different.
Sure. For many years, all the well guys or the pump guys had in their toolkit was these two options. You've got a timer-based system and a pump protection system. And sometimes they use those together. Your timer-based system was basically just that. It was a mechanical way of saying, I'm going to allow the pump to only pump for X amount of minutes, and I will let it sit and rest and fill back up for X amount of minutes. And depending on how much water you're using, it'll on and off, trying to catch back up. But you're not slowing down the water in that case. You're just saying, hey, I'm only going to draw for this short period and then it'll have to rest for a period. And the problem with that is you're always fiddling with it, right? Because that water table is changing, the amount of water that can get there, how quickly it can flow, that all depends on the water table. And so you're constantly fiddling with that to really kind of tune that. And it is really restricting what you could get, because it's not going to ever go, hey, we've got plenty of water, we're going to continue to pump. It's just set. The pump protection is there as just a layer to just basically do that. It's protecting the pump. It's not there to help the well in any case. It's just there saying, hey, once that pump has spun dry and we see that that amperage has changed because it's like there's no load on the motor, we're going to shut down. And then you set, again, a timer. It says, hey, I'm going to guess it needs an hour or 2 hours to fill back up before we'll allow it to try again. And so all these things, you're making a lot of guesses and you're fiddling with things. So that was really all that they used to have. Now we've added a whole nother layer where this is not only protecting the pump because we're not letting it pump dry, we're also protecting the well because we're slowing down that draw of water, and we can see that water level because of that back pressure representing that, and stopping before we run that pump dry, letting it stay more water in that well and soak and fill back up, and just continually doing that with the information we know how much water's in there, and adjusting. It automatically adjusts. You don't have to go out there and fiddle with it in the spring and the fall and so on. Just because of that water table, it's going to do that automatically for you.
So you touched on this a little bit earlier, but basically the well harvester's changed a lot since you built the first one. Guess that would have been 16 years ago. What are some of the main changes to the system?
Yeah, so I mean, when we started, we had a tiny little screen that was green, and it had just some integers there telling you what was going on. And we had some button lights that would light up when a pump's running. And it was pretty ugly looking. And obviously it was a custom build for each site. So you had a lot of work to do on the site. Now we've got a full-size touch color screen that gives you a lot of data. It's showing you graphing of water usage, showing you how much flow your well's producing currently as we're drawing from it. It's telling you, is my well currently running? Is my booster pump currently running? What's the house pressure currently? There's just so much at your fingertips. And then the fact that it's a single unit that just slides in. It's a custom build tank that can go through doorways. Plumbing's all tucked into pre-casted relief in the tank, so it just looks sleek. The booster pump's inside. You don't see it. It's nice and clean and it's quiet. The pressure tank's actually built into the tank. There's a donut hole which helps in two ways. It keeps the tank from billowing out because it's engineered with that donut hole, and that tank goes in there. You don't see it. It's nice and clean. We just spent a lot of time with some designers when we're putting that tank together on how can we engineer it so it holds the water and doesn't billow out. We have to cage it like some other ones we've seen. And also utilize those spaces well for our wiring and our plumbing and tanks and all these sort of things. So that's the fun part of owning your own business and being able to design something specific for the need and be proud of what you end up with.
I've talked with a couple of guys who've actually told me like this thing looks like a piece of art and a little piece of art in their garage, and that's a good feeling right there. We put the time into making it look nice because we care about our products. We want it to look nice.
So innovation really never stops. So at this point, we're looking at a new release of the Well Harvester 3. You've been obviously very involved with these new features. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about that?
So yeah, the version 3 of our well harvester system is one, adding more features and making the product better than ever, but then also taking in customer feedback. We listen to you guys, and we try to make our product as good as possible. One of the main differences is, for any of our past customers, you'll remember that when we send out your well harvester, we check pump data. So what's your well pump? What's the gallons per minute, horsepower, all that stuff. And then we size that flow restrictor specific to the well pump. Now, the problem is we don't always get good data on that. Sometimes the customer doesn't know, or the static water level is a lot higher than we originally think. And so it's hard getting that flow restrictor sized perfectly every time. So the way that we solve that is we now have a actuated flow control valve. So basically, it's a electronic ball valve that closes to basically create exactly the back pressure that we're looking for and restrict the flow of the pump, exactly what we're looking for, but it's fully automatic, and it custom tunes itself to each customer's need. So no more checking pump data or any of that. You just plug in your system, turn it on, and it's going to tune its settings all the more to your specific situation. It's got other things like there's a flow sensor on it now, so we know exactly what the flow is coming into the system, which it displays on the touchscreen as well. It'll show you how many gallons have been harvested over the past week, the past cycle, so you can always go onto the statistics screen and see how much water did I get the last cycle. It also shows what harvest rate it's pulling from, what the average pressure, house pressure is. But one of the big things that we got feedback on was the optimization discharge valve. That wasn't super popular, and we didn't really like it either. So we found a way to get rid of it and still collect the data that we need for the well harvester to tune its settings without needing that valve. So there's no more needing to pipe it to an area outside that can drain off, and there's no additional plumbing. It's just further simplified and still doing everything it needs to. It's still getting all the data it needs to have that over pump protection.
So in 2023, we trademarked the name Well Harvester. Tell us, why would you do that?
Yeah, so we used to always just call it like our low yield well system or our low yield well solution. And that was a mouthful and not easy to market either. So we decided we needed a name, something memorable, something short, and something that kind of sums up what the solution is. And so we settled on Well Harvester. So well being, that's obviously what we're working with. We're working specifically with wells, not with city water or anything with this product. It's specific to wells. And then Harvester, because it's harvesting little bits of water at a time from the well to store it up. So we came up with that name and got it trademarked, and now it's ours. All right, so now we're going to do some rapid fire Well Harvester frequently asked questions. So you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first one is, why is the tank black?
Well, my first few systems, they were clear. Well, not clear, translucent. And if there's a window or if it's a garage and the garage door's up, we found that algae starts growing with the source of light. So we ended up spray painting the first couple of tanks until we could find black ones. So black obviously keeps you from growing algae, and that is much nicer to have clear water than rainwater.
And it's interesting because black tanks aren't super common. And I believe that's because you want to easily be able to look at the tank and see how much water you have in it, right?
True.
But we made ours black and put on the touchscreen exactly how much water we have in it, right? So
yeah, it's a lot easier to look at a colored touchscreen and see a integer also telling you how many gallons do you have versus looking at the side of the tank. Go, well, it's half full. Let's see how big is the tank. Making some calculations in your head. So
that makes sense. So the tank is 215 gallons. Is that enough water storage?
So like anything, is this cup of water enough for me? Well, it depends on how thirsty I am at the moment or if I dump some on the floor. 215 gallons should be enough for a average household on a low producing well. Now, if you're extremely low producing, or you're like, hey, I want to pressure wash, or I've got drip irrigation, or I wanted to run some sprinklers, well, then you manifold another tank to it. And we even had people with 2, 3 tanks, 4 tanks. Just depends on their scenario. And that's the cool thing, is it is modular, easily added and made to whatever you need.
So you mentioned that we look at water usage, but how does maybe well yield also play into that?
Sure. So you've got, 2 aspects to any household on a well. You've got how much water are you needing in the day, how fast you need to draw that from the tank, but also how quickly can that well replenish that tank. Depending on, basically it's that variance. Let's say this well is producing 2 gallons a minute, but you're drawing 4 gallons a minute. So your difference there is 2 gallons a minute that you have to make up with that tank. And so you just factor, how much do I need and how much is it replenishing? And an average household is using about 350 gallons a day in the U.S. Obviously, if you're watering your yard and pressure washing, you're using more than the average, and then people in a apartment are using less because they don't have any landscape to worry about. But obviously, you're not probably on a well in an apartment. But it's those 2 factors that we look at, and then decide, how much do you need. And you can always, get a system and go, hey, maybe your lifestyle changed. Maybe you've had 3 more kids, or you bought a horse, or you got some cattle, and you go, hey, I need a bigger buffer, so let's add another tank, and we manifold. That's the sweet thing, is that it's modular. You can size it up to whatever you might need.
So how long are the pump cycles for the well harvester?
Well, there is no standard answer there, right? Basically, we're slowing down that water draw. And let's say you've got your water table and it's coming down, and what's going to happen is it's going to know where that point before we run that pump out of water. That's what we call our safe point, and it's going to allow it to pump to that point. Now, if the water's able to easily get there, obviously it wouldn't be a low producing well at that point. It'll pump for a longer time, but if it's a slower and it's dipping down that safe zone, it'll stop it sooner. So it's not a time, it's that back pressure that we're watching. So there's no, what it pumped today is going to look different than what it pumps a week from now or a month from now. So that's the beauty of our system. If you had just a timer, that point would always be different because of that water table and how fast that's coming in. So we're going to pump the most amount of water without over pumping that your well at that moment can do. And that's the beauty of our system.
Does this replace a customer's pressure tank?
Yes. The advantage to our system is that you can remove your pressure tank, slide our system right into that spot, because it's got its own built-in smaller pressure tank. And the way our system works, it can utilize a much smaller pressure tank and yet keep that pressure a lot more consistent.
Where all do we ship these systems?
Well, currently we're shipping them all over the U.S. The funny thing about low-producing wells is, for instance, our house is a high-production low well. It's a shallow well, I'm saying. And I've got a neighbor like a quarter of a mile away that has a extremely low-producing well. And it could be one neighbor's great, the next one's not, and it just depends on the ground that they're drilling in at that particular spot, how quickly the water can refill. So there's never, like, you couldn't say, oh, this state never has a problem. There's always going to be a problem somewhere in that state. And but yeah, we're shipping them all over the U.S. We've got quite a few different plumbers and pump guys and homeowners. We love it when the homeowner calls and says, hey, this is perfect. My plumber couldn't find anything. I found it. And then all of a sudden the plumber calls and says, hey, my customer wants this. I've never seen this. This is amazing. Even city municipalities. We've had some calls from those guys, and it's just always exciting to see what that next call, where that's going to lead, and what the opportunity would be.
So we get this question quite often from residential customers wondering, hey, can I install this system myself? How do you answer that?
Absolutely. We were a little reluctant early on to just open this up to anybody, but we find that a lot of our customers are homeowners that are like, I've got a problem. I'm going to go on the internet and I'm going to punch in low producing well, or whatever the keyword might be, and they find us. And even if they have a plumber or a pump guy that's like, yeah, I don't know, then they'll turn them on to their plumber or pump guy, and it's fun to see that light and spark come back to somebody that thought, man, that there's nothing we can do to solve this. But absolutely, homeowners are great. They are always looking for something to be able to fix their problem, and often they're a little bit hesitant, but once they've got it plumbed up and they plug it in, and then they call us and they're like, this is awesome, and they just are thrilled with, man, I've got water like I used to when I was on a city water meter, and I don't have to worry anymore. Man, that is just like awesome news for us, because when you're in that spot, you're always like going, can I flush the toilet? Can I take a shower and run the dishwasher at the same time? That's the sort of stuff that most of us don't think about or worry about, and that's what we can return them to.
Yeah, with how easy our system is to install, really, as long as you've got some basic knowledge in how to do plumbing and a tiny bit of electrical, as long as you feel comfortable with that, system's very easy to install. So go for it. Another question that we get often is, does this system or any of our other systems come with a warranty?
Yeah, all of our systems come with a 3-year warranty. All of our products, we're using like industrial grade systems. We're not just putting something together to hope it's going to last you, because this is obviously a big part of your everyday life. When you don't have power or you don't have water, life stops in your household, and we want to provide something that's just going to work. Yet something that's not on the top of your mind, always wondering, man, because you've already been lacking water. You don't want to also worry about, is this thing going to fail on me? So yeah, we definitely stand behind our product, and we're happy to provide a 3-year warranty. So we've been talking about the well harvester. What made us branch out and add the water booster?
So I remember we got a call early on about a guy who was at the end of a municipal water supply, city water line, and he was getting very low pressure and volume from that. And he had a big house, a lot of water fixtures to supply, but he just did not have the flow or pressure to do that. So that's when we heard that. Of course, you're a problem solver. You're like, well, we can fix that. We've got our tank, we've got our boost pump, everything. Basically, we just need to replace the flow control instead with a simple float that would keep the tank topped off at all times. And then now you've got a water buffer to then pressurize your house. And so that's exactly what we did. And then we called it the water booster, and built on the same platform as our well harvester system. But it is specifically for either city water lines where the pressure and volume's low, or shared wells, or even wells where, again, low pressure, low volume. Maybe you've got a bunch of water filtration so that you're not getting a whole lot of flow. And then that just gets put into the tank and then boosted at high pressure, high output to the house, so that now you can do all those things that you used to all at once with high pressure and high volume.
I could even see where somebody's doing a home remodel and they want to have a multi-head shower, right? And they had plenty before, but once they've added that, like, man, we just don't have the amount of volume and pressure we need for our new setup. And that would probably work great for that setup.
Yeah, it's another great solution. Another one that we hear often is people who want a backup water supply. So, whether they're on a shared well or maybe they do have a well, but they've got no way to utilize a generator or something like that. With the water booster, when you've got a power outage or maybe there's something wrong with your well pump, you can just plug the water booster into like a small generator and then pressurize your house with water that's stored up. So whatever the situation, you've got backup water on hand that you can very easily pressurize your house with. So many different utilizations for the water booster. It's just a great universal product. So we've got two different water booster products. We've got our water booster and then our water booster pro. And our water booster, it solves the issue that we talked about of boosting pressure, more volume, water storage. It's a very mechanical way of doing things and economical. It's a more budget-friendly solution. Our Water Booster Pro takes things a little bit step further. So you've got your touchscreen interface. So the Water Booster doesn't come with that. The Water Booster Pro comes with the touchscreen, so you can see at a glance how much water you've got in the tank, what the pressure is. All that good stuff. So you've got more data with the Water Booster Pro than you would with a water booster. So that's kind of the difference between the two, but they accomplish and solve the same thing. Well, oftentimes we get people calling us and saying, hey, we've got low water pressure. But we know that that's not always the true culprit of what they're experiencing. How would you explain the difference between flow and pressure and diagnosing what is truly the problem there?
Yeah, that's an interesting one because either one of those situations causes the same outcome. If you don't have enough water, whether that's volume or pressure, it's going to have the same outcome. You're like, hey, I need more. A good way to kind of give you an example is, let's say you're in the shower and you've got a shower head and it's got multiple sprays of water. If you were to plug off all but one of those, that would create a lot of pressure. Not a lot of volume. If you're filling up a cup out of that, it would take a while, but it would have a lot of pressure. It's going to be hitting you pretty hard. Now imagine you let go of all of those and it's decent pressure, and it's got a lot more volume. It's going to fill up that cup faster. Now imagine you pull a drill out and you drill some big holes in there. Now you're going to have a lot of flow, very little pressure. It might fill up your cup a little faster because there's less restriction on that, but it's not going to hit you. It's going to be draining straight down. It's not me sprayed out. That's the difference between flow and pressure. You think about a really corroded pipe that maybe it's a galvanized pipe and it's got a lot of corrosion from a lot of iron from your well. It gets smaller and smaller. You're going to have pretty good pressure as long as you're not needing a lot. If you had just a small hole, you'd have a decent pressure, but you're not going to have much flow. If you really open that up, it's not going to flow very fast. And other times you might have a good large pipe, but you just don't have the amount of flow. Maybe your pump just can't pump it fast enough, or there's just the water's not there. The pump's gulping air as it's going along. Both of those are going to end up with the same problem. In the end, you're going to be in the shower going, man, I need more water. It's barely coming out. So trying to diagnose what it really is the culprit there. Because, yeah, you might be on city water and there's plenty of water there, but it just can't get to your house because of the corroded pipe. So your volume's not there. So we need to address that one way versus, maybe you've got plenty of volume, but you just have no pressure. It just can't ever build up to that level. And so we got to do a little bit of diagnostics, but basically our system in the end will produce that volume and pressure as long as your internal house pipes aren't, corroded way down or whatever. So yeah, that's the basics on volume versus pressure.
And how can people essentially diagnose themselves whether or not it's a pressure issue or a flow issue?
Yeah, you can go to landscape supply or building supply, and you can usually get a gauge that screws onto your hose bib. If you put that hose bib on there, or that pressure gauge on there, and you open up the hose bib and it says 40 psi, and you go and you start opening up faucets, and as you open them up, if that pressure gauge isn't dropping, you've got plenty of volume. But if that's dropping quickly as you start opening them up, you don't have very good volume coming through. So that would help you diagnose that aspect of it. But you're not sure about like internal house plumbing, if that's restricted or not. But really, our system can't overcome your internal house plumbing. You may end up having to do some work if that was what's really corroded and plugged up.
So in December of last year, 2024, we, for the very first time, exhibited at the Groundwater Week down in Vegas. Tell us a little bit about what that is and why we went.
Yeah, the Groundwater Week is a great place to go for just seeing what's the new innovation working with wells, drill rigs, well pumps, all things water, whether that's filtration, whether that's testing water. There's so many aspects to that convention. There's huge drill rigs. It was exciting to go, kind of rub shoulders with the guys that are doing this every day, and to show off what we were doing. It was a lot of fun, and we also just got to kind of to get some insights of what are these guys running into? What are the problems that they're trying to solve? How could we help them do their job better?
So now being back from the Groundwater Week, what are some thoughts and takeaways from the event?
Yeah, it was obviously really helpful for us to like get in the trenches with these guys, right? Ask them, hey, where are you from? What are the sort of things that you run into? Do you guys have low producing wells? And it was almost always, yes, we do. And we'd ask, how do you work with those? What are your solutions? And then they'd go, what do you have? And we would show them. And it was always awesome just to hear the feedback of like, whoa, that I could have used that at so-and-so's house. And what about the next job? And they're talking back and forth and already like brainstorming on how to use that product. And that was really awesome for us to see the industry guys like get excited about it. And it was fun too to just go, hey, what do you think of our product? And get some feedback of them like, hey, if we're using this for this job, maybe we'd want to change this, or maybe you could, think about this a little bit differently. And, that was helpful. Sometimes you have to swallow your pride a little bit and just listen. But I think, coming away from that, we got kind of on fire between the two of us as we're brainstorming, like, what's the next step? What could we do to make these guys even more happy? And that's our new version is the product of that, going to that convention and hearing feedback and going, yeah, we can make this better. I don't know how many times we've sat down and go, this is the final version. We can't make it any better. And then we find something more that we could do. And I don't think we're ever going to be done innovating. But that was I think a really important thing for us to get in there and to ask for feedback. And that was awesome to hear.
Yeah, so this next one we're also going to be exhibiting our well harvester at, which this year's is actually in New Orleans. So very excited about that. Come see us December 9th through the 11th. What's interesting about this next one is that the Groundwater Week is co-hosting with the Irrigation Association, which is super interesting. And it'd be cool to expand
the market.
Yeah, expand the market and who sees our products with those irrigation guys, because I'm sure they, as they obviously run across this issue as well.
It kind of feels full circle for me, because that's kind of, I was starting with irrigation stuff when I was getting to know wells and low production. And now we're like coming back around to where we've fixed this problem for homeowners, but now, looking back to the irrigation guys going, hey, you guys might need this, or we actually not might, you guys do need this in certain situations, and here's a solution to your problem. So at the Groundwater Week, while we were there, it wasn't just to show off our system and to get feedback. We were trying to get dealers lined up. So what did that look like?
Yeah, so it's a little bit newer of a thing that we're doing. We call it our dealer program. Essentially, we're trying to get well companies, pump guys, plumbers, whomever, professionals to sign up to become dealers. And basically, you get, through our dealer program, you get discounts on our products, promotional materials, great customer support, and a really cool hat. So lots of different perks for becoming a dealer. And you get added to, we've got a dealer map on our website that's essentially go-to for people that want our products installed but would like a professional installation. They can go to the dealer map and see a local dealer to them, give them a call, and then that dealer handles everything. So basically, yeah, it's trying to get more professional companies to utilize our products and help our customers as well if they want it installed by a professional.
And I suppose even increasing those dealers' revenue, because we've got people coming to us saying, hey, we want your product. Who can we have put it in? So that's helping them as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the dealers can decide what they want as far as like installation pricing and whatnot. And one great piece of feedback that we got from some of these well guys that we talked to at the Groundwater Week, some of which signed up to become dealers that weekend, was that they appreciate how quickly and easily our products can be installed. They can have essentially unskilled labor install these much faster than they could build their own systems. And so they're even further increasing their profit margins by doing this and offering a much better product to their customers. So it's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for today. We hope that you enjoyed this full-length discussion on all things Epp Well Solutions and our products and wells in general. If you want more information or if you'd like to reach out to us, you can head over to eppwellsolutions.com.